Welcome to the T-Pac Arcade. Today's game is Death Trap for the Atari 2600. In this 1983 action shooter from Avalon Hill, your mission to deliver a top-secret diplomatic message to the Galaxiu Emperor has been thwarted by a massive enemy spacecraft known only as IT. Which seems a bit disrespectful. I mean, I'm sure we can use pronouns more dignified than it, but that's beside the point. Because the game itself can be just as enigmatic as the unnamed enemy ship, but I'll do my best to explain it anyway. So to defeat it, you have to destroy the 3 power generators. At the start of the game, there will be 2 stationed at either end of the playfield while you attack from beneath their triple-tiered force field. If you run into that force field, you blow up and it's game over, no matter how many lives you've got in reserve. And that threat includes the force field strip at the bottom of the screen too, so your maneuvering space is limited, especially since the shield layer closest to you drops every time you go 15 seconds without damaging a power generator. And how do you damage a power generator? Well, you hit the red gun caps with your torpedoes, which fire one at a time and can actually be guided left and right by your joystick for as long as you're holding down the action button. They even accelerate if you hold forward, which I didn't realize, but sounds like it would have been real helpful. The problem is, your ship locks in place while you hold the action button, so you can't dodge attacks and steer a torpedo at the same time. And the power generators are constantly firing homing plasma fireballs at you. And the other problem is that even though torpedoes can pass through the force field, they can't pass through barrier blocks, which are populated below the generators every time they're damaged. The barriers build up and scroll along the top 2 force field strips, so the key is to hit the power generators as the barrier blocks pass right below them, so they basically stack on top of each other instead of spreading along the barrier horizontally. Easier said than done, but if you don't stack the barriers, eventually there won't be any openings left for the torpedoes to get through. The 3-piece yellow bar at the top of the display shows how much damage the power generators have taken. Once you deplete the left and right bars, destroying the outer generators, the final center generator will appear. Luckily, this one doesn't create more barrier blocks when it's hit, but it does constantly raise the force field below you and lower the force field above to box you in as you attack. And this generally correlates to taking more hits as you have less and less space to dodge incoming plasma fireballs. But you do have a stock of reserve lives that replenishes by 1 for every 20 seconds you last without taking damage. Which may sound generous, but making it 20 seconds without taking damage is about as easy as making it 20 seconds without coughing when you've got something tickling the back of your throat. Like when you're in church and you don't want to interrupt the service with your loud hacking and wheezing. But if you do manage to survive the attack and destroy the last power generator, you win the game. That's right, this isn't just about high score, it's an Atari 2600 game you can actually beat. Which is a better incentive than earning points here anyway, because the scoring is just about as convoluted as everything else in Death Trap. It's calculated by these weird combinations of how much damage the power generators take, how many ships you have in reserve, and how many times the lower force field drops. I don't know, sounds like too much math for me. I was just happy to clear the game once in easy and normal mode. Easy mode isn't too demanding, since there are long gaps between plasma fireball shots, and the barrier blocks are narrow. But normal mode really forces you to strategize. The barrier blocks are thicker, so you have to utilize the stacking technique, and you have to arc your torpedoes to land hits more often, which is extra difficult because the power generators shoot at you more frequently. I went several rounds in a row where I made it all the way to the last generator and only had a few hits left to beat it, but ran out of time and got crushed between the narrowing force fields. Oof. And I didn't even mess around with hard mode, where the enemy fire is constant and you don't get your lives replenished no matter how long you go without taking damage, or coughing in church. It's worth noting that one of the most novel aspects of Death Trap is actually the title screen where you select between these difficulty levels. You pull up the menu with the fire button, press up and down to cycle between the square symbol for easy, the X for normal, and the diamond for hard, then press right to move your ship into the warp zone and start the game. It's kinda convoluted, just like everything else in Death Trap, but it's neat and creative at the same time. Which goes for the audio visuals here too. The graphics are all pretty cool, from purely aesthetic touches like the wiggly animated energy columns and power generators, to genuinely helpful gameplay cues, like how you can see the plasma shots charge up before they fire, and how your ship color shifts to reflect how many lives you have in reserve. Death Trap is full of great audio cues too. When you're busy dodging fireballs, you can always hear whether your last shot hit a generator by the crash, or a barrier by the thunk. There's also a foreboding but whimsical woo-woo sound when the lower force field inches down towards you. And you know I'm always a fan of good ambient spaceship hums to fill out the soundscape. Now my favorite thing about Death Trap is how it fuses all these elements from different types of games into something really unique. You've got complex firing mechanics like in a combat game, the barrier segments like in a reverse block breaking game, the clock-based penalties and bonuses like in a time attack game, and the navigation controls and aesthetics of an arcade-style shoot-'em-up. The only problem is that combining all these elements makes the game not only difficult to win, but difficult to even learn. So if I could change one thing here, I'd try to simplify it all into something with more of that pick-up-and-play accessibility Atari games are usually known for. Overall, Death Trap pushed my brain and my reflexes to their limits to deliver a gameplay experience as tough as stifling a coughing fit in church, but as rewarding as any deep space shooter the Atari has to offer.